Welcome to the Truth to Power Hour. I'd like to, what I call the long stitch is how I get from here to all the things that I've forgotten and putting them in conscious recall. That's a big challenge for me because I wore all these covers. I didn't know what else to do. I thought that was the life was getting an appropriate cover. One of the best therapies for me has been to become a public figure and talk about this publicly and publicly blurb it out despite any perceived reservations that may draw conclusions from people to slander or blackball me. I don't care. I've already surmounted all that. I've surmounted all of it. I have proven myself in the outside world. I did a great business as a photographer, selling aerials. Now, and this is the new everything. This is it. Everyone's going to aspire to be like me because they already have. They've already taken the creative juices that I've was God-given born with and stuck them into these other, talking head narratives. So I've been, deprived of my, I guess, recognition or money, whatever. But all that's going to change because of MK Ultra Girl, because of the time, because of me taking up the sword and saying, okay, enough is enough. No one is going to grant me my destiny. I will grant myself that. Like, I have all the feelings because I'm extremely empathic, and unfortunately I have to carry it around, all that stuff, on top of being and doing all these like righteous things, like looking after myself, paying all my own way, being a self-employed artist in this economic climate where everything's against me. Anyway, it's done. I'm over that. So I don't feel I have anything left to prove in that regard. All there is now is the long stitch and expressing that and all the different remedies that I can offer through my experience, because I've pretty much lived everything. My life was episodic, and as much as possible by exposing the medical system to be the gatekeepers for MK Ultra program, the Nancy paperclip. I mean, they are. I mean, many of them, the doctors don't understand. They are, and the nurses, I mean, you can see it in their faces and how they respond. They don't understand that their curriculum and all their tables and their standards were actually developed by Nancy doctors, like Project Paperclip doctors. So I'm attempting to assert that there's ample evidence that Joseph Mengele, aka Dr. Green, operated with impunity throughout the Canadian medical system in clinics and hospitals, mainly university hospitals, I'm pretty sure, and that would go for the States as well, according to my research, for decades. So this needs to be known and it needs to be corrected. All right, so this is part of my campaign to root out the cults. It's up to you, the doctors and nurses and admin people within that establishment, to rout out the cult. Now, I'm telling you, and I will hopefully get around to presenting a better case when I put it all together, but the evidence is overwhelming and insurmountable, and just like everything, it all comes out. However, I'm not dead yet, and this prescription to like just hopefully they'll die off and then, we won't have to pay them anything, or it'll just get swept under the rug and then the offspring can continue to live good lives, which is what happened. All those Nazi paperclip doctors' offsprings are doing great. Really. Scott Gottlieb, he's either the grandson or the son of Sidney Gottlieb, is the head of the FDA in the States. Ewan Cameron's son is a lawyer in Washington, D.C. So these are covers, right? Covers. So I spent a lot of time trying to establish a cover which I thought was going to break me through into a being that would be my identity. And this is a common misconception with people, Luciferians, everybody, Christians, that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. What you've got is what you've got. What you're started with is what you're started with, and everybody has a different makeup, genetic blueprint, plus a soul blueprint, to be metaphysical or to be metaphorical, which everybody is when they're talking, because that's just the way it is. So stay tuned for a little commercial break. Hey, a little shout out to our media sponsors. I'd like to thank V, the one and the only, creator at Truthtainment TV network on YouTube. He's also the host of the Red Pill Hardcore show on Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank Guy Pardon of the Disclosure Report. That is disclosurereport.com. I don't intend to, become a loser at this point. No, I'm going to win, and I'm going to win big. And this is goes the same for everybody who can relate to what I'm saying. I figure this is a game, and it is a game of projection and time creation and reality creation. Well, then I'm going to do it, because I can't wait for anyone else to do it, because, well, they're not doing it. However, I'm going to put my hat off to all the other survivors that have come out in the last 5-10 years with their stories, because they help me, and mine stitches in, and all that is part of what I'm going to talk about, and giving positive advice and healing and spiritual understanding and judicial remedies, because all that is happening for me, has happened for me, but it's because I have stepped forward with it into the world at large. Firstly, it was through the media, and yeah, it was like, oh God, what the hell is she talking about? But now it's like, oh, I think I get it. And it could be worse. It could always be worse. And nobody holds the fear of things getting worse more than me. And this is why I balance delicately, in that I have this high sort of PTSD thing going on in the background that's like in my body that I'm used to. And this is how I can explain my targeting at this point. But there's remedy, there's healing, there will be in my lifetime. There is part of it is doing what I'm doing, but also now I'm going to work towards the foundation, getting the foundation established. So I want to talk a little bit about some of this reverse engineering healing techniques. It hit me, as it often does, that, if I was electroshocked, and, that might account for this whole brain thing, freeze up here, numbness, my whole life. If that is true, then, maybe like a little reverse stimulation will counter it. Anyway, I was right, as usual, again, and I was fortuitously put into an encounter in a trade show that I was working at with a salesperson for this device, and I've been using it. It's called the IQ device. Anyway, this is it. I'm going to demonstrate it. So I've been using it. It's a massage tool, but I've been using it as a like brain stimulator as well. And I had this in my head, and then the guy was across from me and gave me this fantastic deal on it. I asked him right away, can you put it on your head? Right? So this is what you do. You go like this. Okay. Turn it on, and you get the right setting, and then you get the right port, and you turn it on. Just kidding. Don't ever do that. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, well, listen, I did try it on my head there, and you can do it on the minimal setting. Really hurt, like, but then it subsided. It did, like after a minute. It was like the surface hurt, and then it was more. It was like copacetic. What I think it did was open up my sinuses, because, well, that's where the sinuses are. And I've always had breathing problems because it was all shut down. And asthma, which is part of the program, and of course afflicted the entire population at the same time, along with eczema. Anyway, so this is an example. I will give a good example now. Okay, so actually I'm going to start the whole story again, because that I'm using this device as a massage tool, but then I got a phone message from a fellow target TI.
Let you know something and that is, if you're having any issues, like some of the issues that I had as a result of it was depression and PTSD from some of the trauma. I was actually tortured in surgery, and this is how they did it to me. And anyway, I found this device called the CES Ultra, and using that for 6 or 7, it didn't work at first because I only used it as per the instructions. But when I used it for 6 or 7 hours a day, I can't remember exactly, I think it was a week to 2 weeks, man, this cloud lifted, my depression went away, the major depression went away. I'm still targeted by the cult, so, it's always kind of a state of these mini traumas, I call them, mostly terrorist crap. But in any case, if anybody else comes to you and they're having problems with these critters, and I don't know if how much you know about what's going on here, but they're literally layering in spirits and then programming them. MK Ultra is basically weaponized Kabbalah mind control. It's a form of the craft, witchcraft. So in any case, that caused me so much joy, that device. And unfortunately, sometimes some of these personalities can be very strong, and they don't want to be pushed out. They're susceptible, because they feed on human energy, they're susceptible to, which has a negative and a positive, they're susceptible to electricity. And so cranial electrostimulation puts about 200 millivolts into each earlobe, and they don't like that. It's much rougher. They're susceptible to it. So in any case, good luck to you. It's freaking bizarre that when I saw that you believe you're the person in that classic MK Ultra photo. It didn't start in Germany, that's crap. I've traced this all the way back to the Book of the Dead.
CES, and it's a similar thing. It's electric. It's the bi-current electrical thing, which will interfere with any other current that's coming at you, right? Basically. But in my case, it was done so like um like into my like spinal cord that in my eye that uh it's just for me to break it up is awesome because I've never been able to do it before. So now it's actually happening. And the more you do it, the more it's going to stick and the more breakup of these points, which I think, you know, people would call them implants, right? So that's working. So, but the guy, and that corresponds also to the Merry Christmas paper. He said that in that paper. They forced him to write that, the deep state. Yeah. That they don't like it, the back of the throat. See, these are demons layered in. I mean, that's one way to look at it. And this is what I've been saying. I've done the esoteric research and I've followed, I've gotten answers for my questions like I always have. So I'm able to actually figure out what this is on a DNA level or a psychosomatic level that I never would have imagined to be possible, but it does appear to be true. Yeah. So these energies, you could call them that, attach to you, and then these interrupt it. Okay, and then you get back a feeling of well-being, which is natural, right? It's natural to feel good or well-being. That's what you know. We have to have some of it, or we'd be dead. That's what people are doing, right? They're all fucking alive for some reason. I don't know, but okay. So I'm gonna do it for real this time, just as an example. So put it right here. And this was combining the techniques of the other device with what I have already. So I'm putting this pad, and you can wet it a little bit more, right behind my ear, right there. Right? So I got that there, and I'll put the other one on the other side, and then I'll just go lay down and turn it on with these different settings. That's basically it. Thanks for coming to the show and listening to what I have to say. I am M Culture Girl. My mother was in the sleep therapy program with you and Cameron. My father was also a mind control victim. Most likely, we were all projects of Joseph Mengele, and nobody knew it. Well, the kids didn't know it. I've just discovered this in the last few years of my life, and I'm 57. My parents, I think, well, they didn't want us to know, but they did know. I remember my mother telling me as a kid that the government, Canadian government, imported Nazis. She knew that, and she didn't know much because her brain was fried. She didn't remember a lot. She was not political. She didn't have opinions or anything. She was just a loving, kind mother that stayed in bed almost all the time. And when she wasn't doing the very basics to look after us, like cook and clean, she was in bed and sometimes crying. But anyway, she was very depressed.
Electroshock therapy may be recommended for other disorders.
Supposed to program a new personality.
It has been alleged in some cases that Cameron held patients against their will for weeks at a time, drugged and unconscious, under the threat of being committed to an institution for life.
And was dealing with a untreated effects of being a mind control subject of Cameron. But as a child of that, and uh, that in itself is a deal. But then on top of that, adding that I actually had experiments done on me, and it makes perfect sense that my sister and my brother were involved as well. And now there's just, dozens and dozens and hundreds of other people coming out with stories, and we're comparing them and we're talking to each other. And yeah, Mengele was everywhere, and it is known. I spoke to my surgeon's, uh, some guy, other doctor in my surgeon's office yesterday, and he knew. I bring it up to every medical professional that I'm dealing with. And I always say, MK Ultra, I was experimented on. I don't care, if I trigger them or whatever. My doctor, thought I was delusional. He wrote that down on my disability application. It was so funny. And then when I spoke to the lawyer who was worked on my appeal, she just shook her head, like, wow, because I'm not delusional. I've accomplished like way more than most people. And so what if I talk about really far out esoteric subjects? Who cares? It doesn't mean I can't operate or do what I do. So anyway, be diligent. Anyway, this guy knew Mengele operated through the system. I mean, how come one doctor knows and he's a foot doctor and then the others don't? Or are they all lying, or was this guy primed? I don't know, because I had told my surgeon about it. Anyway, there's a lot of denial in the medical system, but it's coming out and it has to come out. There was even a commission in the 80s in Canadian Parliament to find out, if Mengele was here. And, it turns out there's tons of Nazi doctors, but none of them were ever prosecuted, or maybe they were, but they got off, and then they died a few years later at the 99 because, none of them were prosecuted. None of them. And now their offsprings are running things, as I mentioned before. Stay tuned for a little commercial break. mkultragirl.org. That is where I talk about my subjects. Most of the information is there somewhere. It's been an ongoing blog for 10 years. In fact, it was started out as a raw traveling blog, an attempt to document my becoming a raw foodist and how that transformed my life. I have a lot to say about alternative health. That's all tied in. Now my number one cause is MK Ultra, and this is me, right? And I think that's good advice for everybody, because everybody, now that I look back on my life, everybody that I knew that was ever in a cause was actually MK Ultra. They were trauma-based mind controlled as children. And then they find a cause, or it's quite common to put a cause in front of not knowing that you're covering up the trauma. So if you can focus on yourself and the trauma, and that being the victim and the what you need to heal from, not something in the outside world that needs to change so that you can feel better, then you will be immune from the type of things that are happening to, say, whistleblowers, like Julian Assange, for instance. I mean, why doesn't he ever talk about growing up in a cult? Like he did. It's all over the internet. That's another thing, researching. Don't be afraid to research. Don't be afraid to read the most crazy sounding articles from the most discredited websites. Everything has information. Don't be afraid. Don't use more covers to narrow your perspective, in my opinion. All right, this happens all the time. Anyway, I wrote about that on my blog. I called it "Fake News: What It Really Is." Marshall McLuhan was one of my dad's mentors, I guess. He was obsessed with him. I think he was like a dark priest, actually. That's my impression. I have a lot of psychic impressions and a lot of empathic tonal vibrations that I've learned how to categorize, I guess, or understand better so that I can interpret what's going on around me. And I can sniff out a cult ritual better than anybody because it happened all around me. And when I get that vibe again, uh, alarm bells go off. And my whole life is to not have that. I create a world where I don't have that in my life. But I sure know when it's going on. It's not like I'm not afraid of it. I mean, that's part of being a white magician, right? You've got to know how to counter the dark, but you've got to know the dark. But nobody knows the dark better than an MK Ultra mind control victim. However, coming out of it is, there's very few roadmaps and guideposts, especially like even 5 years ago. At least we have each other's testimonies now, whereas before it was self-help and all that crap and Eastern mysticism and religion and oh God, and still the religion. I am like really tired of the reformist Protestant crap. But I have many stories about that, about my being on the other side. I I am a being on the other side, and I think that's why now I can be helpful to humanity because I know a lot of stuff about the other side. So, and fighting demons. I mean, there's so many symptoms that I have of being a TI that are nothing compared to fighting a demon. So, right, you got to kind of pick your battles and weigh it all up. But I like to stay on the top of the um, theta uh, zeitgeist of it all. It's not really the top because I go from the top to the bottom. What I do is slice it and then insert other programs to my own programs, like I've done in the last 3 or 4 years since Discovery. Everything's changed for the better for me and the world. I can see it. They're still using me. Stranger Things. Yeah, Stranger Things came out this week, so I've given them a few warnings on Twitter, like I have done before in the past. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue your asses. I mean, come on. You can't like take all these stories and all of a sudden they show up in entertainment and then we're suffering. And no, sorry, someone's going to pay for that. And that is going to happen. Watch them pull the frickin' series after this, but it is going to happen. All we have to do is collect, organize, and go after them. Even what I'm saying now is changing everything. That's how it goes. Okay. Well, stay tuned for a little commercial break. mkultragirl.org. That is my blog. I have an art site. It's called ellenatkin.com. I'm redoing it again because I've got to change the hosts, and I'm don't like the way it is. So that I have to. I would like some help actually. If anyone's got some skills that way, a little bit of rebranding. If you want to collaborate with me on some projects like books, then we can work a deal with the proceeds. All of that goes to support me and what I'm doing. Right now, I'm on a minimal income. I'm doing a couple part-time jobs, and I'm getting welfare, which is great, because Canada has that, and that is of absolutely no moral consequence to me. It may have been in the past, but it isn't now, considering what I've been through. So I am starting all over, and I'm going to work my way up from the ground up. I have to focus on healing. Really, that's the main thing for me, rather than this pressure to surmount everything become something that I'll never become because no one will ever let me because I never paid the Death Eater card. You know, and it's always been like that. So now I'm going to turn all that around and take it all back for myself. And it's happening. So that would be a great way to elicit support, you know. And I do have supporters. Thank you very much to my great supporters. Thank you so much. But if I got more, then more could be accomplished. And I could pay people, which I believe in doing. Since I am an artist and one of my big things is to get paid for what I do in art, which is contrary to the system because they destroyed art as having any value except for these cutouts that they hold up, just like movie stars. Oh, this is the person you worship. And even if they have no talent, it's just, that's it, that's all you get. And all their money goes into it and all their parties and all that to make it seem like that's the real thing. But it's not. None of it's the real thing. They stole it from all of us victims. And then they washed us down the river. And all that's going to change. So I'm going to have guests on. I have some great guests. He's one of them. He's fantastically talented and adept. And he's had so many experiences in 3 programs, the Secret Space program and also the entertainment program and one other program. So he's got tons of like intel. Thanks. Oh, thanks to V. Yeah, my man V. Yeah, I'm so happy that I'm working with V, Truthtainment, and all the things he does are right up in the line with what I'm doing. He's a warrior, and I'm a priest warrior, so I'm not going to ever like not let warriors be warriors because warriors are what we need. We do not need another ideologue. We're gonna be in peace. Well, everybody fights the same demonic thing. Everybody's got a demon to fight, or several. So, warriors know that better than anyone. So I'm going to close the show off with a great example of a warrior and just the kind of passion and right in your face talk that people just, need to hear, I would say, and, can't be denied type of thing. Thank you very much. All right. Next week, I've got big news. Big news. If you've been following my story, next week, I have big news. Big news. Okay. Thank you.
You have to change all your habits, how you talk, how you think, how you believe. You have to do that or you're fucked. Okay? You're fucked. You're gonna fucking die. Alright? I swear to fucking God, you are all fucked. Everyone. You are all fucked if you do not free yourself from this hypnosis and this slavery.